Nathan comes every Wednesday after school to teach her chemistry. At least, that's what her parents think. Or that's what he thinks too. And she's learning some chemistry. Slowly. But what she's mostly learning is that he isn't like other boys, men rather. That people like him exist. He doesn't dress like other boys. Men, rather. Even the ones her dad's age. She suspects that if he could just wear a black overall every day, he would. He doesn't even use any product on his home-cut brown hair. He smells very clean, but it's not a man smell like Lynx or Old Spice. It's a bathroom smell, hygienic, neutral, wet-wipey. He wouldn't be bad looking if he had a stylist and a makeover, but he wouldn't be good looking either. He's very clever though. You can tell that just by the way he moves, stands, holds himself. Like if he doesn't curl in, slouch down a little to contain it, all that frightening brilliance will burst out, bathing the people around him in a white-hot nuclear flash. Like Cyclops in the X-Men movies, he has to wear special shades to stop him blasting everything he looks at to ash. Nathan reads X-Men comics. The second time he came over, he pulled out a heavy slab of textbooks, and a comic book fell out too, fluttering and slumping onto the table like a shot bird. He cleared it away too quickly, like it was porn, and didn't mention it then or after. Let's look at moles again, he said instead, and his voice stretched and split, and she wondered what he thought he'd done wrong. She hates moles. Not the little furry mammals, they're cute, though her dad doesn't think so, patrolling the garden nightly for evidence of their subterranean earthworks. Moles, the chemical unit. For some reason, she just can't grasp them. They scurry and burrow away from her brain like the ones in the garden evade her dad's questing spade. A mole is the amount of a substance within the same number of molecules as a gram of something. They've had 5 lessons. She should know by now. She's not stupid. She does well in her other subjects, so why can't she understand? Today they're going over it again. Her homework last week was so bad that they've gone back to basics. She's hot with frustration and shame, and the June afternoon shimmering just outside the window doesn't help. A mole, he says patiently. He's always patient. His patience seems infinite and ever-expanding, like the universe Professor Brian Cox talks about in the science programmes her dad makes her watch. Is the amount of something that has as many elementary entities, which could be electrons, atoms, or molecules, as there are atoms in 12 grams of carbon-12. His voice, when he says this last bit, has the perky, assertive tone of one of the Compare the Meerkats. Brilliant. She's thinking about meerkats on the Discovery Channel now instead of moles. Why can her brain grasp natural history but not chemistry? Why 12 grams? A stupid question, but it's too hot for science today. Because that isotope of carbon has an atomic weight of 12, see? He smiles, that half-frightened, flat smile of his, like it's obvious. Course it's carbon. Course it's 12. Like so much else in this incomprehensible subject, it makes an instant, instinctive sense to him. He's fluent in this language. She can't even do ABC. Why are they here? Why, carbon? She's stalling. And she knows it. He stares at her. He loves answering questions. He could do it all day. But the point of his tutoring her is that she will be able to answer them in the exam. That's why her parents are paying him £20 an hour to tutor her. That's why he's here. Let's look at it this way, he says. Instead of asking why, let's ask how. How we would work out this molar equation, for example. The look on his face tells her he's quietly proud of this smooth segue. She stares down at the page, blank. The dining room, which she's come to hate since starting her A-levels, because it's where she has to do homework before dinner, is simultaneously gloomy and stuffy. Its small window looks onto the garden, where her dad, sweeping for molehill, is gingerly stalking the flat plane of the floor like a bomb disposal expert. But she can't open the window, even though it's insanely hot, because her hay fever will kick in, and she doesn't want to be helplessly sneezing and dribbling from her nose in front of him. It's embarrassing, and it sure as hell won't help her crack moles. So they sit there, side by side at the dining table, inhaling the motherly smell of dust and Mr. Sheen, sweating over the thick Nuffield textbook. After a tense half hour of struggling through mismatched equations, she feels like she's climbed a molar mountain and is still at the bottom looking up through mist. Nothing's working. What she'd give for just a crumb of his cleverness. Why can't she open up his brain and see chemistry how he sees it? The patterns, the clear connections, the logical simplicity of it all. Isn't there anything else we can do? She says. They did crystallography at school yesterday. She can tell the difference between face-centered cubic and body-centered cubic systems now, because one of them is like the atomium in Brussels. But she suddenly realises she can't remember which. She thinks she might cry. Well, he says tentatively, we can't skip moles because it's a very basic part of chemistry. But I was in town the other day and I found this. He closes the Nuffield, dips into his backpack and slides another, much smaller book across the table. She looks at it. A GCSE primer on moles, pamphlet thin with cartoons of the furry mammals carrying stylised atoms around in their big paddle-like hands. Some are even using brightly coloured wheelbarrows. It's insulting. It's degrading. It's still too bloody hard. She can't help it. Big tears burble out of her eyes onto the shiny comic book pages, buckling the paper. When she turns to him, he looks shocked, like she's just slapped him in the face. This is for kids, she says in a wailing whisper. I still don't get it. I'll never pass chemistry, and if I don't, I can't do medicine. I'll never be a doctor. You want to be a doctor, he says. She nods. Her lips unsteady, her tongue and eyes thick, everything out of control. You're so lucky, she says. You could be a doctor like that. I don't think I could, he says. I don't have the bedside manner. And he snorts a funny little snort, like laughter going down the wrong way. You could be an amazing doctor and you don't even want to. It's not fair, she whines, knowing how childish she sounds. Why can't I have your brain? You wouldn't want my brain, he says very seriously, looking directly at her for once. And suddenly she feels like she's seeing through his eyes into his head. What it's like to know things other people just don't understand, without even wanting to, without even being able to use it, except to teach retards like her. And even then, he can't make anybody see the world how he sees it. Not really. How his world is light where theirs is dark, easy where theirs is impossible, and the other way round too. She blinks. Can you explain it to me one more time, she asks. And he does. And this time, she listens. He says that it's about balance, about making both sides of the equation the same. And she imagines cartoon moles sitting in a scale, trembling to equipoise. He talks about atomic properties, and molecular binding, and aromatic compounds and electron sharing. He's memorised the whole of the periodic table, and he describes all the elements, and how they work together, clinging to and rejecting one another, how the noble gases are called noble, because they don't like mixing with other elements. It's a story and a game and a pattern, and it's the whole world. Simple. And, not all at once, but enough. She sees little flashes of light and puts things together, like those molecular models in the chemistry lab, piece by piece, atom by atom. At the end of the lesson, he gives her a molar equation to do. And now she grasps, not just how to do it, but why it works that way. Astonished, she asks for another and another. She keeps getting them right. It feels like the fruit machine coming up cherries again and again. Wow, she says, and thanks. Puzzled, frowning almost. She can't believe her luck as she waves him goodbye. He doesn't wave back. He never does. 6 weeks later, she passes her exams. The day she gets her results through, she calls him before their last lesson and tells him she's so excited. Not just a pass, but a B. Her coursework was terrible. And an A on the exam. She'll study so hard she'll get into medical school. She's going to do it. She hangs up, fizzing with triumph. She wants to thank him, but how? She only has half an hour before he'll be here. She runs down to the corner shop where they sometimes sell her cider at inflated prices and gives the Turkish man watching the telly 20 quid. Wine, she says. I want some nice wine. It's for a friend. He gives her a raised eyebrow. He's heard the friend line many times before, but 20 quid will help him shift some of the top shelf stuff nobody ever buys. He sells her a dusty 2009 red, its price sticker flaking off. When she gives it to Nathan, he looks as surprised as he ever does. Thank you, he says with a quirk of his lips. I'll save it for a special occasion. From his backpack, without preamble, he pulls a bunch of red roses, stalks first, their blooms blackened and crushed in transit. Sorry, he says. They must have got a bit battered cycling here. That's okay, she says. Already she can feel their thick, syrupy scent crawling up her nose and tickling her sinuses. Can't keep them anyway, I'll get hay fever. I'll give them to Mum. She can keep them in her room. She likes roses. All right, he says after a moment, and nods. Well done, he adds, and shakes her hand, zipping up his backpack now, putting on his cycle clips. He always does this, and rolls up his shirt sleeves, layer by layer, meticulously, before he even leaves the house. She thinks it makes him look like a Gumby off her dad's Monty Python videos. She wonders where he goes when he's not teaching her, whether he'll share the wine with friends, a girlfriend even maybe, whether he lives alone. She's never wondered this before. She runs to the door to say goodbye properly, to wave. But by the time she makes it outside, he's gone, and there's only the black road frying in the crazy July heat. Years later, when she's qualified as a doctor and gone on to specialise in psychiatry, she will, in one of her very first lectures on social behavioural disorders, realise with a strange sensation of sudden clarity, as with moles so long ago, what his problem was. She'll understand why he couldn't be a doctor, why he couldn't share his thoughts and feelings the way you might share a bag of sweets, casually, generously, without minding. She'll understand at last, and will feel a sharp and aching regret that she didn't keep the roses. But she won't remember, or ever really understand, why she once had such terrible trouble with moles. It all seems so easy now.